I was a talented musician. My father was the god Apollo, who gave me his skill in music, and my mother was Calliope, a muse. I had an amazing voice that could charm anyone who heard it. No god or human could resist my music, and even rocks and trees would move closer to listen. Orpheus' music was famous, and people and animals alike were drawn to it. Even objects seemed to be enchanted by his songs. He had mastered the lyre while still young, and his beautiful voice brought audiences from far and wide. One day at the gathering, he saw a shy, beautiful wood nymph named Eurydice. She was drawn to Orpheus by his voice, and they couldn't take their eyes off each other. They quickly fell deeply in love and soon decided they couldn't be apart. Eventually, they chose to marry. On their wedding day, the weather was bright and beautiful. Hymenaeus, the god of marriage, blessed them and a big feast followed. But soon, their happiness turned into sadness. A man named Aristeus, a shepherd, was jealous of Orpheus and wanted Eurydice for himself. He hid in the bushes, waiting for the couple to pass by. As they came closer, Aristeus jumped out to attack Orpheus. Orpheus grabbed Eurydice's hand, and they began to run through the forest to escape. The chase was long, and Aristeus kept coming after them. Suddenly, Eurydice tripped and fell, and her hand slipped from Orpheus' grasp. When Orpheus looked back, he saw that she was very pale and realized something was wrong. Aristeus, seeing what happened, left. Eurydice had stepped on a nest of snakes and was bitten by a deadly viper. Aristeus gave up on his plan, cursing his luck and Orpheus. After his beloved wife died, Orpheus was no longer the happy, carefree person he once was. Life without Eurydice felt empty and endless, and he could only feel sadness for her. Then he had a bold and somewhat crazy idea. He decided to go to the underworld to try to bring her back. Apollo, his father, would speak to Hades, the god of the underworld, to allow Orpheus in and listen to his request. Armed with his tools, the lyre and his voice, Orpheus came to the entrance of the underworld and asked to be let in. No one stopped him, standing before Hades, the king of the dead, and his queen, Persephone. Orpheus explained why he was there in a voice that was both beautiful and sad. He played his lyre and sang, asking Hades and Persephone to let Eurydice return with him. Even those with the hardest hearts, whether human or god, couldn't ignore the pain in his voice. Hades cried openly, Persephone's heart softened, and even Cerberus. Orpheus' voice was so powerful that Hades promised him that Eurydice would follow him back to the world of the living. However, he warned Orpheus not to look back at her while she was still in the darkness. If he did, everything would be lost. He must wait until she stepped into the light before turning to see her. With hope in his heart and happiness in his song, Orpheus started his journey out of the underworld, glad that he would soon be with his love again. As he neared the exit, he could hear his wife's footsteps coming closer. He wanted to turn around and hug her right away, but managed to hold back his feelings. As he got closer to the exit, his heart beat faster and faster. The moment he stepped back into the world of the living, he turned to hug his wife, but sadly, he only caught a glimpse of Eurydice before she was pulled back into the underworld. When Orpheus turned his head, Eurydice was still in the darkness and hadn't yet reached the sunlight. Just as Hades had warned, she was pulled back into the dark world of the dead. Orpheus was overwhelmed with sadness and despair. Shaking with grief, he went back to the entrance of the underworld, but this time he was not allowed to enter. The gates were closed, and the god Hermes, sent by Zeus, stopped him from going in. After that, the heartbroken musician wandered aimlessly day and night, lost in total despair. He found no comfort in anything. His sadness was so deep that he refused to be with any other woman, and soon he avoided their company completely. His songs were no longer happy, but filled with deep sadness. His only comfort was to lie on a large rock, feel the gentle touch of the wind, and look up at the open sky. One day, a group of angry women, upset by Orpheus ignoring them, came across him. Orpheus was so full of despair that he didn't try to push them away. The women killed him, cut his body into pieces, and threw the pieces and his lyre into a river. His head and lyre floated down the river to the island of Lesbos. There, the Muses found them and gave Orpheus a proper burial. People believed that his grave gave off music, sad but beautiful. His soul went down to Hades, where he was finally reunited with his beloved Eurydice.